All right, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate your making time to join us today, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording later. Today, we're going to be talking about how to take your idea, how to go from an idea to a minimum viable product in 30 days. A few bits of logistics before we dive in. If you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A. The chat is also open if you have any issues or questions there. Preferably use the Q&A if you have a direct question. We will be posting the recording of this on YouTube on the Hal9 channel. We'll be sharing that both in that link again, both in the chat, as well as emailing everyone who registered with a link to the recording as soon as it's available. I'm Lou Bajic. I'm the head of marketing here at Hal9, and joining us today is Javier. He is the CEO and co-founder here at Hal9 and has an extensive background in AI and data science. So great to have you with us here today, Javier.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us and hosting this, Lou. Super excited.
Excited to be here as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that aspiring AI founders face and how Hal9 can help. Then we'll be sharing our 3-step playbook for AI founders, going from no code to low code to first code as a way of really, confirming product market fit and investing just enough to confirm that and putting off some of the deeper investment until you really need it. We'll share a couple of case studies and real founder stories and talk a little bit about where Hal9 fits in, some next steps if you would like Hal9 to help you on your AI founder journey. Now, first off, I'm going to just do a quick poll on for the audience. I'm curious for the attendees. And let me share that poll. It should show up. Launch that poll. Okay, so first question in the poll is, do you have an idea or more for an AI feature or product? Is that something that is bringing you here today? Second question is, if you have a product, have you prototyped it? Have you created at least some mock-up or prototype that illustrates the product and shows the workflow of it? Appreciate everyone who's answering the poll. If you've prototyped it, is it live? Is it shipped? Are people actually using it now? And then finally, and this is really often the most challenging question, is are people actively using it and getting value from it? So we'll just keep that poll open for one more minute. So appreciate it. And if you've just joined, just a couple of, have a poll going right now on what you've done with AI features. All right, so just looking at that poll, what do we have? We have one more. I'll go ahead and leave that open for a moment. So looking right now, about half the attendees have an idea for an AI feature or product. But for the most part, only one person has actually prototyped it, shipped it, and looks like even the person who's has it live, it's like, no, people aren't actively using it. So this is something we see pretty often. Lots of ideas, getting past the idea and then actually getting it into the hands of users is super challenging. So this problem is exactly what Hal9 was founded to help. The reason behind Hal9 is to empower founders like you, aspiring founders like you, to build the future of work. We see a huge challenge here. We see that the automation from AI is accelerating. It's accelerating and automating knowledge work in an unprecedented way. And as you've heard countless times, AI is going to transform millions of jobs and really create trillions in new value. But right now, most of that value is on track to be concentrated among these large tech companies. Because most people only use AI, they don't actively profit from it. And so we believe that the world needs ways for anyone to create, own, and profit from AI products. And so it's our belief that all you as creators should share in this AI revolution, that Hell9 is founded to make product creation, not just use of AI, accessible to everyone. And so we help deliver the tools and the expertise in the platform to turn your ideas into scalable AI businesses. Our approach to doing that is that we provide AI features as a service. That's platform, people, and products. Platform, we provide the AI infrastructure to provide the features in your products. We provide people, both as design and coaches and implementation, but also ongoing support. And then products. We help you go from end to end to build your MVP in 30 days. And then from there on, work with you to improve it, to maintain it, to host it all on a single platform. So we were your one-stop shop for creating, designing, implementing, and hosting these AI features in your products. Because our vision is really to democratize AI entrepreneurship and help the millions of aspiring creators and founders out there to build AI products. So today we're going to talk about our vendor agnostic playbook that works, something that we've seen work with a number of our clients, and that whether or not you work with Hell9, we hope you find this advice useful. Hell9 today is powering products for dozens of startups with tens of thousands of users and millions of monthly interactions. So Hell9 is a proven platform with a large number of startups right now, and we hope you join that journey. So if you're here, you've heard stats like this before. You've heard that huge majority of Y Combinator applications feature AI. Huge majority of VC funding is going to AI. As part of this, solo entrepreneurship is up significantly. And this is all helped because there's such unprecedented array of tools and frameworks that AI provides to help you build and code and market your products. But there's a lot of challenges for an aspiring AI founder, despite these opportunities. The biggest one is really verifying product market fit. How do you ensure that what you build is actually in demand in the market? Key thing to do that is building your MVP fast, so you can put it in front of real users and get feedback. And to this, we see as like one of the biggest challenges the AI founders face. How do you build your MVP fast enough to get it to market, to have momentum? And a lot of people are put off, of course, by all the AI uncertainty and hype. AI tools are changing constantly. It's hard to keep up, even for people whose job it is to focus on AI. Hiring AI talent can be very, very expensive if you want to bring on a technical co-founder or hire an external consulting company to implement this for you. Supporting the infrastructure that's needed to deliver AI products is very complex. And if you're not careful and you're calling out to an LLM via an API, this can get very expensive very quickly unless you're very careful and you understand what you're doing. So to address these challenges, our challenge for AI founders is to go from idea to MVP in 30 days. And the idea here is that you want to move quickly. Why? Because one, by creating something, you make it real. It goes from an idea floating in your head to something you can actually get feedback on. If it's a successful idea, then you have first mover advantage. If you're the first one to come up with an idea and then actually take it to market, you're often in a good position. Often, if you need to fundraise, as a lot of founders do, then having something concrete to show and illustrate the value that your company is going to deliver is critical to really get support from investors. And perhaps most importantly, you need to validate or fail as quickly or cheaply as possible. Yes, you want to be successful, but if your idea does not have product market fit, if it's not going to work, it's better to know that sooner rather than later so you can move on to something else. Because we believe that momentum is what keeps ideas alive and gets them out of people's heads and into the world. So this three-step process that we encourage is simply no code, low code, first code. So no code is simply validating the idea. And we'll talk more about each of these. But here you might use a tool like ChatGPT or an agentic tool like Zapier or Lindy to build a simple mock-up. And hopefully you exit from here with a validated concept. You've actually gotten some feedback from real potential users that there's a potential market fit. The second phase is actually to build a working prototype. And this is where often people use tools like Lovable or Bolt or Replit to create a simple interactive prototype. And so hopefully by the end of this, you have some working MVP for one use case, for one complete workflow that actually demonstrates the value. And again, this makes it more concrete, helps you put it in front of more users, helps you validate it to investors. And then finally, the third step is really going to that first code and taking it to production, where you take your MVP and build it out to have a proper backend with modern technologies and modern tools. And ideally, by the end of this stage, you exit with going into a private beta, at least, where your tool is live, you're getting feedback, real potential users who may pay you are starting to use the tool. Just going to close that poll. Thank you again for everyone who answered. All right. And we'll go ahead and share the results of that poll from earlier. All right. So let's talk about the stages in more detail. So the first stage, the no-code discovery, is all about validating your idea before you build. I've spent most of my career as a product manager, and I can tell you often the most important thing is to get the idea right before you actually start building anything. You want to confirm the problem is real and that AI is the right solution. Just because you've got an idea doesn't mean AI can solve it, doesn't mean AI is the best way to solve it. Another important point during this stage is, what's your unfair advantage? Why you? Why now? What is it? Is it your expertise? Is it your resources? Is it your knowledge of a particular field? Why are you the right person to build this product better than somebody else could? This is critical both to help make sure you build the right product, but also as you're talking to customers, as you're talking to potential investors, being able to articulate this is critical. Similarly, you really need to define your MVP's value proposition. Go from the idea, go from the stage of, wouldn't this be cool, to, no, we're solving this sort of problem for these sort of people, and it's valuable because of this reason. And critical along this process, you want to get market input wherever you can. Because as cool as an idea seems, until you actually start putting it in front of other users, people who might be the kind of people you're selling to down the line, you really don't know if you've got that product market fit. And so the goal in this stage is really to build confidence fast. So chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude are great for helping ideate. Also great for simple workflows of go in ChatGPT, working with, okay, this is the flow I see. Let me work with prompts to create something manually. Can AI solve this kind of problem? Often the next step is to then build a simulated workflow with no-code tools like Zapier or Lindy or similar tools. And really the key thing here is don't over-engineer early. Don't start with the ideal architecture, because if the ideas doesn't have product market fit, that effort is wasted. Yes, you want to be thinking about this along the line, but really focus on the value proposition first and run early feedback loops with real users. As I've been going along, so just want to remind folks, feel free to add any questions into the Q&A, chat if you have any issues, and yes, we will be sharing the recording afterwards. So ideally, by the end of this first stage, you've got a clear use case and problem statement. You can articulate what problem you're solving and why it's valuable. You should have a prompt or a workflow that works, even if it's a manual, even if it's a string of ChatGPT prompts that you're putting together Wizard of Oz style in terms of behind the curtain making this work. Hopefully by this, because you've shared this with others, you're starting to get user interest. Maybe you got early signups on a coming soon website. Maybe you've done some feedback. Maybe you've done some demos with small local groups or people online. And hopefully also as part of this, you've developed a library of input and output examples. Often building an AI tool requires these sort of, going from X to Y. And so this stage is a great point where you're starting to develop this library of examples. So as you tune your tool in later stages, you've got examples to build off of. Stage two is building a low-code prototype. So here the goal is to build a usable MVP prototype with minimal friction. That means just keep it simple. This is not a production tool. This is a prototype. So you might use visual tools, again, things like Zapier or Lindy, maybe a tool like Lovable to actually build the UI. But you're using tools and some light scripting to prototype whatever that core AI feature is that delivers value. We recommend usually focusing just on one interaction loop rather than trying to do a bunch of different use cases in your prototype. Try and build one loop that goes from end to end and provides value. And so often at this stage, people might be using no-code tools or vibe coding tools like Lovable. Often we're starting to use hosted LLM APIs and standard AI frameworks. Maybe you're starting to put in a vector database at this point. And so the numerous tools you might use. But really the goal is to build and test and learn as quickly as possible. So again, keep it lean, just one complete AI flow. Get in front of some users. Again, can't emphasize this enough. Whether it's colleagues, whether it's friends, whether it's people you connect with on Reddit, whether it's, if you're working with a larger company, colleagues, but you want to test quickly this prototype. How is the flow working? What can you learn from it? Is it solving a useful problem? Do people want to solve this problem with your tool? And so this is where you can capture feedback on, is it clear? Is it valuable? Is it useful? And this is also where you start developing your positioning and your messaging around the product. How do you talk about it? How do you find it? How do you articulate it to potential customers? How do you articulate it to potential investors? And often at this stage is where you might want to engage with a trusted partner. Some folks at this stage will start to engage with a technical co-founder, which if you can find one, great, but they're often hard to find and expensive. Or you might want to engage with a trusted partner like HAL9. We'll talk more about that in a moment.
Hey, Lou, do you want to do the questions at the end or as they're coming because they're relevant to the slides?
Well, if you please keep, I'm in the flow, so I'm not watching the questions. If there's some questions that you'd like to toss in, please do.
I'll toss you one. From the previous slide, we have a person asking us, what does test with 5 to 10 users mean? Do we give them an MVP to try, or can we just share screenshots and get feedback?
So, good question. Ideally, at this point, there's actually some private tool that you can show that's interactive. Screenshots are great, if nothing else. Screenshots are a little bit more the stage one, where even in stage one, you start getting feedback. So stage one is where you might use screenshots and mockups. Here, ideally, you've got a tool that others can use. Again, it could be a very simple application that you've created with Lovable. It could be a workflow that you've developed in a tool like Zapier or Lindy. Ideally, you've got some people actually working with the flow. But again, screenshots are better than nothing. Okay. And Javier, feel free to throw in more questions as we go along if I miss them. So ideally, by the end of stage two, you have this working MVP, again, with some real AI output and some real user input. You have a single AI interaction. So you've got a vertical slice of your product's core loop from end to end. You got this feedback, and you're starting to understand the non-functional needs. I keep that slide in here. I didn't. All right. So non-functional needs are things like privacy. Once you actually put this into production, what sort of privacy and security you're going to need to worry about? What sort of scalability? How big does it need to be? How autonomous is AI in this tool? Is it something where the user is interacting with it every step along the way? Or is it where the AI is going off, doing a fair amount of work, maybe even taking some actions as an agent, and then coming back? So there's lots of non-functional needs that are not just the flow, but everything around that you need to think about when building a robust product and platform. And then finally, stage three is where you start coding and you go to production. So here is where you take your prototype and turn it into a production grade MVP. So this is where you start to firm up infrastructure for real usage, dealing with some of those non-functional requirements that I just mentioned, and where you're hopefully really starting to deliver reliable, testable values to real users. And again, emphasize very strongly, it's better to have one or two complete workflows that deliver value than a part of 10 different workflows that are cool but aren't actually delivering value to the end user. So keep that in mind. So this stage is where you're building maintainable code, you're scaling the back end, and you're also building trust with your users, because this is where they're starting to expect the tool actually to work like a tool and not a prototype. And so that, how you position it, how you protect their security, the vibe your tool has in terms of how AI plays its role, all this is where you're starting to build trust with your end users throughout this.
Hello, I can send you a question from the audience, which is
Please.
interesting. So basically, someone is asking, what if someone kind of like steals my idea? Isn't, since it's getting easier to build products and MVPs with AI, shouldn't I be more careful sharing my idea broadly and, perhaps not getting feedback? Or yeah, what's your take on, disclosing your idea too early, and if that's an issue at all?
I'm going to ask you to comment on that as well, Javier. My thought is ideas are very important, but execution is more important. So there's a lot of ideas out there that never get out of somebody's head. And so protecting your idea too closely risks you're never developing anything real. And so I would lean towards execution rather than protecting your idea. What are your thoughts, Javier?
Yeah, no, I second that. I mean, I think there's a balance, right? If you have a really cool idea, maybe don't put it on the newspaper or, like something super public because, it's distracting and it's not going to help you. But it is super important, as Lou was mentioning, to make sure that that idea becomes real. And the only way of making that idea real is to getting feedback and getting users. And, like if you show it to 10, 100, and even thousands of people, it's very unlikely that anyone is going to steal your idea. That's really, really hard. So yeah, definitely optimize for getting feedback and iterating because most founders don't get their idea right the first time. You're going to have to tweak it and improve it from customer feedback, right? So yeah, definitely, I agree with you, Lou.
So I see another question in the chat that says, how can I figure out the project's budget just for starters when I have the idea but don't know how to implement it? And this, I'm also going to ask you to comment on this. How you want to comment on this one first, and then I'll see if I have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is also related with what we're going to present later on the webinar. But one of the challenges of building startups is the amount of cost and money that they require is infinite, right? I mean, you really, if you don't set your budgets properly, you can spend literally billions of dollars, right? Because a startup is and a company is always something that will require more and more resources. So our philosophy is to have fixed costs and make sure that you can build MVP at a fixed price. Obviously, that means that you need to cut features, and we'll get into that. But the way that we see this is the most important step is generating the minimum viable product with the least amount of resources in the least amount of time, and then getting that cycle of improvements, building the product or the MVP, getting feedback, iterating, and repeating. That's the most important step. And it can be done with fixed costs, right? You do need to get resourceful. You do need to scope down features. But if you don't do it that way, there's definitely not a limit on the amount of budget that you could potentially invest on a startup.
And I agree with all of that. The only thing I would add is it is impossible to estimate how expensive, practically impossible, how to estimate how expensive something is going to be, especially early on. And that's part of why we recommend this iterative approach of like gradually testing and sharpening the idea so that by the time you're actually talking about implementation, you've got a much sharper idea, and which will help you estimate costs. So stage 3 is really where you're moving into production, where you're firming up the infrastructure, you're delivering reliable and testable value. And I said that already, so excuse me. So And again, this is where you start considering all these non-functional requirements and all of the complicated infrastructure on the back end. How do you scale it? How do you use APIs? How do you handle authentication? How do you do continuous integration and deployment so that you can update it and maintain it meaningfully? What's the back end? Where's the data being stored? In a database, in a vector store? What tools or multi-agent workflows are you using? Do you have to custom tune models? Are you using machine learning rather than Gen AI? Are you open source? Are you integrating open source models for some reason, which might be important depending on either because you want to minimize costs or because this is a tool that needs to run inside a company's firewall for security reasons? What kind of monitoring and analytics or logging you're going to put on there? You also at this point, you want to have the legal basics, not just the setting up your entity, your company as an entity, but also here as things are getting real, here's where you're going to be protecting your idea and perhaps managing information a bit more closely. And then eventually, what's your controlled rollout? How do you put this out to larger and larger numbers of users to start getting feedback? And so this is where HAL9 fits in. I said at the beginning that the mission of HAL9 is really to empower AI founders by a combination of people and platform and product. And so the purpose of HAL9 is really to engage with folks, most often late in stage 2 or early in stage 3, where you don't have to worry about all this glue and infrastructure work. The goal is to help you stay focused on your product's idea and value proposition, but HAL9 works with you to make it real and provide a scalable backend. So we've launched production MVPs for multiple startups, and we're currently supporting multiple live products, dozens of startups, and as I said at the beginning, tens of thousands of users and millions of monthly interactions are being run on HAL9 right now. You're welcome to engage with us at any point, even if it's day one and you just have an idea and you'd like some advice and coaching on it. We're happy to talk to you about it and give our advice and help make it real. And as you get farther along, really help you build the actual MVP as quickly as possible. And so ideally by the end of stage 3, you actually have your MVP deployed, typically with controlled access. This is where you might be going into a private beta. You've got a maintainable backend where you can update it and maintain it reasonably. You've got some monitoring and analytics in place. You've got that early user feedback on the tool and some performance data. And this is where you really have proof of viability. And so if you haven't gotten funding yet, often leaving stage 3 is where you've got something concrete. You got people actually using it and getting real value out of it. And this is often where people will engage with investors to get more value. See another question here in the chat. Oh, let me before. I'm going to hold off on questions in the chat. Let me just wrap this up. And then before I hand off to Javier, we'll answer a couple questions. So again, we're 3-stage process here. The first one is using no code to validate the idea. You want to focus on what value you're providing, what your unique advantage is, and start to validate the idea with real users. Stage 2, you want to get to one usable AI-driven value interaction, which you're testing with a small group interactively. And by the stage 3, you want to develop something that's scalable and robust and maintainable. And as I said, often this is where HAL9 really can come in as the trusted partner, as we have with dozens of founders, to help you make your MVP real. So before I hand off to Javier, I see there's a question here. So a question in the chat, what do you consider more important, the careful crafting of the prompt or the correct choice of the AI agent? You want to take a first shot at that, Javier?
Yeah, so I would say that obviously the AI agent or the LLM that you choose, say OpenAI versus Grok or Gemini or Anthropic with Claude or whatever, it's obviously important to choose, but I would say that that's 10% of the work compared to crafting the prompt properly. What we're seeing right now is that most LLMs are pretty similar. So yes, different types of problems could benefit from choosing different LLMs, especially, if you care about speed or context size or the like. But I would say that 90% is way more important. What is the prompt or what is the, documents, the process, the code that you write on top of the LLM to, for your product, right? So it's less important which model you pick and definitely way more important the prompt. And there's another question, Lou. We can answer it together. So the question is, you are suggesting, Lou, that usually most startups do fundraising on stage 3. But what if they want to do fundraising on stage 2, or I guess stage 1, right? Or stage 0? Is that viable?
So, my answer to that is the more concrete that you can show value, and both the value the product is solving and that you've got real user interest, the more likely you are to get investor funding. Certainly you can get investor funding earlier, but often that might be more of a friends and family round, would be my thoughts. But I mean, Javier, I think you've got more experience here than I. What would you recommend?
Yeah, and the attendee added additional information. Sorry, it was a typo. So it's asking also on pre-seed. If you can do so. What we've seen actually is that um, on this stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, it's actually even before the pre-seed round. It's really the friends and family and angel investor round. So you can fundraise at any point in time, but what I've learned is for stage 1, if you have a problem that you really want to solve, usually startup founders ask their family and friends, and they just come with a problem and they say, I really hate webinars. Like, I think there's a better way of doing webinars. Would you support me for the next 3 months or 3 weeks or whatever it is, for me to explore, do some of the suggestions that Lou is presenting, right? Like, can you support me to do some of the market research and the like? That would be the friends and family round. Stage 2, it's also maps closer to the friends and family round. Step 3, when you have the MVP, or start building the MVP and the like, that's usually where we see founders getting their angel investors. So it's not necessarily your friends and family, but maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's a manager, maybe someone in your network that you ask them, hey, I already did all this research. I'm already starting to build. This is the early feedback that I'm getting. Would you support me, right? So I would say that's still kind of like the angel round. Pre-seed would actually be once you have like a little bit more confidence that the MVP is working and you have a little bit of traction, and you have some user studies, and that's when you can go apply to accelerators or even get VCs to fund you. But yeah, so I guess the short answer is you can get funding from stage 1, but it's not from institutional investors. It's from friends and family, and then grow it over time as you move through these stages. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Thank you. All right. And so I'm going to hand off to you now. Javier, just let me know when you'd like me to advance the slides.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and we're doing kind of like short on time, so I'm gonna try to go fast to leave us time for questions. So what we're gonna do on this session is we're gonna share with you some of the MVPs that we've built with customers and projects and the like, to give you a better sense of how this looks in practice. The first project is called HAL9 Reply, and this was one of the very early projects that we did early on to prove how our model works, right? So yeah, if you want to go to next slide, Lou. So what is HAL9 Reply? It's a Chrome extension that you can use. You can download it from the Google Chrome store, and then you can use it to reply on social media. Currently, it's free. There's no, we didn't build these for, thinking on profiting at all, but rather to prove our platform, to prove the value, and help future customers understand how we work. But yeah, in general, that's how it works. You just click Shift Command 9 and you get a reply on social media that comes from our platform on the LLM. Now, if you go to the next slide, Lou, what is interesting is we also use AI to generate the landing page. So on the low code second stage that Lou was mentioning, we did a lot from iterating with tools like Grok and ChatGPT to generate kind of like what's the landing page, how it looks like, some of the animations. And again, we like using AI. It's important to use AI. It will help you move faster. And For us, this particular exercise is something that we put together on 6 days of full work. Obviously, that doing it full time is perhaps not recommended. And, because you need to get customer feedback and the like, and that's why we have a period of 30 days to build MVPs. But this is the type of MVPs that you can expect, from working with us. And I think we have a couple more slides, Lou, just wrapping up HAL9 reply. Okay, so what exactly did we do in 6 days? So first of all, the core functionality, which is automatically generating replies. So you go to social media, you hit a button, and you get a reply. Um, it's also important to capture the context, right? Because it's one of the challenging things that we had to solve on HAL9 reply. It's not just answering, randomly, right, the social media, but you need to extract from social media applications like LinkedIn. You need to figure out exactly what is the relevant context for a conversation to be able to reply to a social media comment correctly. And the other part of it is, you want to make sure that the replies from the AI, they're not generic, right? And they don't feel like a chat interface or like a chatbot. So we did a lot of personalization as part of the context and the conversation to say, okay, this feels like something that I would have written myself. And yeah, I mentioned we built this in 6 days. It grew to 4,000 replies per day. Again, was all organic. We're not trying to promote it or anything. And interestingly enough, obviously, we use our own platform to power the AI and prove that we can build prototypes really, really fast. Yeah. So and again, the 3 stages, mapping the 3 stages of HAL9 reply to what Lou presented. We actually started this project asking AI, how can we help social media managers? And the question that I asked on the prompt was like, what do social media managers hate, right? And, some of the advice from AI was like, hey, maybe too many replies, right? Because, it's just boring to just reply to, comments that are not super interesting. So we did some of the customer discovery on ChatGPT as part of these 6 days. And then the low-code prototype, the way that this maps to is, as I mentioned, we built our landing page with Grok. Now there's tools like Lovable and the like that you can take advantage for. And then the last stage, the first code to production, is using our platform HAL9 to actually build AI replies that make sense and are useful to in social media. Right, if we go to the next one, Lou. Oh, you know, click the next slide, Lou. There you go. All right, so now we're gonna cover a couple real customers that are taking advantage of HAL9 and the like. The first customer is called Greeny. They are a company based in France, and apparently in Europe, companies need to report their CO2 emissions. So carbon footprint is important, and you need to report it as an organization to the government. And they came to us and they were trying to figure out like how can we build an AI that does that for our customers. If you go to the next slide, Lou, there's kind of like I love this kind of like use case because it shows you a little bit where, like the different stages that Lou mentioned. They actually came to us really at stage 2 when they already did the market research. They already had a landing page. They used tools to generate this landing page. So they did a really good job like figuring out like the business case. And what you see on the left side is the web page as it used to look when we started talking together. So again, great work they did on validating the market, like the features that the customer needed, using AI and modern tools to build their website. What we did as part of the MVP is what you see on the right side. For this particular customer, our platform, HAL9, provided the AI that takes an invoice and converts that to CO2 footprint analysis report, right? And that's what we like to specialize in MVPs that use AI. And part of that is generated with our platform using AI. Part of that is also involving our team of experts to polish it to the point where the calculations are accurate, efficient, and the like. And also something interesting to mention on this minimum viable product is the part on the center, that's what our company delivered. the menu on the top and on the left, those are components that were generated with tools like, Wix and WordPress and the like. And kind of like that's a good example of how you want to scope the MVP, right? Like you don't want to necessarily hire someone to build everything from scratch, because that's building code first solutions is more expensive. You can think of ways of lowering the cost of development by building things and stitching tools together with tools that are drag and drop and easy to use, right? So in some way, you can also see on the screenshot on the right, you can see that there's a stage 2. That's the frame and the website and the like. And stage 3 was the MVP that we generated on AI. And then they were able to go to market with this version and start getting customers, which is great and impressive. So that's a really good story. And I think we have one more slide on Greeny Blue. No, we're switching to Propio. So Propio is a startup based on Seattle, and the founder is an economist and is very focused on helping accountants leverage AI to be more productive. So the way to understand Propio is AI bookkeeping for startup, right? And if we go to the next slide, Lou, I can show you a little bit how this product looks like. Their case was actually a little bit different than the previous two projects. They already were at stage 3 or 4 or maybe 5 with their actual software product, right? So they started their market validation stage 1. They moved to stage 2, and they use no code tools. They got feedback. Then they hire a team of developers and they built an entire solid product to help accountants make use of AI to deal with their bookings and their interactions with their customers. However, they were very interested in working with us as AI partners. They wanted to integrate AI into their product. And I think what is interesting to think about that there is that some products might be already on stage 3, 4, and 5. But if you don't have AI and you want to integrate AI into your products, you can think of the AI features as starting on a lower stage, like stage 1 and 2. And that's exactly how we work with them. We work on implementing the AI features on their product. This was smart reports, smart AI agent, and the like. And this is something that we're still investing. And we help them integrate those features that started as market validation, understanding, deploying those features to a subset of their users, and eventually having like a MVP and a robust product that uses our platform to integrate AI into an existing product. We usually don't see this use case as often, but it's definitely a case that we've dealt in the past. And I think we have one more use case, and then we can open up for questions after a few more slides.
I think I must have hit the. Huh. That's interesting. I hit the wrong button, clearly.
Well, this is cool because this is a video that we have where some of our customers and the like provide information about HAL9 and their perspectives. But we'll give us a second while we fix the slides. In the meantime, I could potentially take a look at questions. I'll just answer a simple one. Does HAL9 work in Spanish, Portuguese, or German? Yeah, I mean, the core functionality of the platform is in English, but we've developed applications for especially people in Mexico in Spanish. So the applications and the service that we provide is multi-language, and so we can definitely work on products and solutions that are not necessarily in English. Okay, we got the slides back. Right, so there's one more example that we want to show you. This one is called Pixo, and think of Pixo as artificial intelligence in the real world. The MVP, the way to think about this is we wanted to see if we could build an ink display that renders personalized images for your home or desk and office and the like. One version of the minimum viable product was personalizing and building the AI that generates the images on a website. That was important because, again, you don't want to invest in the hardware before you get some feedback from users. And the way to do that in a more cost-effective way is to work with us, build an MVP that is web-based, and start getting that feedback. Later on, we build the actual device, and you can see the device here. Same image as in the screenshot that you have on the right. And what it's doing is basically generating personalized images for the taste of a particular person in the real world. I wouldn't consider this a minimum viable product. This is mostly like a full-fledged product that works and lives on the real world. But what is important to notice here is that even if you're doing hardware products, and I believe there's a question about, can you do hardware products? And the answer is yes, but doing a lot of MVPs on real hardware tends to be really expensive. So I would suggest, exploring using, web technology software, not as a way of exploring your market before you do the larger investment into building a hardware product or a very complex mobile app and the like. And if we move to the next slide, Lou, we'll tell you a little bit how we work here at HAL9. And this is also answering one of the questions that the audience asked, is like, how can you do an MVP, within a budget, right? And with the right process. So we basically simplified our process of building and launching MVPs in 30 days with a workflow and a solution that we're very proud of. The way it works is twofold. You have access to our team, so we help you build that MVP and the like. And the way that we can do it very cost effective is by leveraging our platform. So that's the platform part of the slide. We can run on multiple clouds. We can integrate with multiple services. We have chatbots support out of the box and APIs, and we integrate with things like Lovable. And basically, by combining these two aspects, it really enables us to help you be successful and build MVPs in 30 days. We also, our philosophy is very incremental. We want to work with you long term. So the first month, you're going to have an MVP. That's the goal. But the journey doesn't end there, right? The MVP is going to get you feedback. Maybe you need to iterate a couple months on pivoting the features, improving them, and the like. But the goal is to eventually to convert that MVP into an alpha release, a beta release, a product, and then scale over time. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to hal9.com and click plans. There's information there, and you can also schedule a call with me, and we can chat and figure out if we're the right partner for you. Right. So I think that's the last slide that we have, and we have a few more minutes, I think, to address questions. Lou, I can send them your.
And there's a few questions here. I think just particularly on this slide, there's a question about pricing model and whether it's transparent or not. As Javier said, if you check out the hal9.com plans link, you can get more info. The plans start at $2,000 a month, and so that's fully transparent, and all everything that involves, as we've said a couple of times, people, platform, and product, in terms of really helping you build your MVP quickly. There is a question on, is something built using Lovable Stage 1 or Stage 2? Can we not have users use that and raise money? Absolutely. Lovable could be, in our definition, Stage 1 or Stage 2. Often we describe Stage 1 as no code, so that'd be more something like a workflow tool like Zapier, but no reason you couldn't use Lovable for that. Lovable is a great way to build prototype and get feedback. But what we've seen again and again is that when someone is going from Lovable or a similar tool to try and build a real product, in our terminology, Stage 2 to Stage 3, things tend to break down. Lovable can get super complicated. People can go down rat holes with generated code. Things work for a while and then stop working as they continue to tweak. And that's where you really need to bring in somebody like HAL9 with the expertise on building products. And Javier, please, if you want to chime in on that.
No, sounds definitely good. I can do a question here from the attendees. So how do you do research from AI, new research, found out new information on non-existent previously by experimenting? And yeah, maybe I can answer that one. So Well, obviously, real new AI is like, if we're thinking about academic research and papers, obviously that is really hard, and it usually requires like a full-time person. Unlike usually they have PhDs and the like to move the needle on AI as a whole. We're not in that business, to be honest. It's doing real research that impacts academia and the world is something that larger companies are doing. What I would say is that one of the benefits of partnering with us is we do have AI experts, that many of them have PhDs. And what we do is applied research, right? So we have a team that keeps track of the latest advancements of AI. And we work with the startup founders that are part of our program and they're working with us. And then we bring that research to them and brainstorm with them and give them opportunities to take advantage of that particular newest research to be applied to their products. In a few cases, we do move the needle. So we do have a couple customers where they really wanted to invest in AI and they develop their own models and the like. But usually that's for stage 5 to 10, right? On Lou's point of view. It just doesn't, building an MVP with new real AI that it moves the needle is not something that you can do for a very limited budget. But there's a lot of opportunity in mixing and bringing new research into new products. Yeah. Right. I think there's one more here, Lou. I can read it. That this one is on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we close with that. Let's see.
That's good.
So, how do you determine the MVP in the most accurate way? When you just mentioned that it's impossible to gauge the economics when we only have an idea. I don't know if you want to answer that one. Like, how can we actually determine the MVP and get it done, which is definitely challenging.
It is challenging, and my advice there is ultimately you have to talk to potential users. And ultimately, as good as the idea sounds, and maybe the folks around you think it's a great idea, but you have to identify who are the people who might benefit from this, why is it valuable, and then talk to them and hopefully have things to show them, whether it's early on with screenshots or an actual workflow as you get into stage 2. Because ultimately there's nothing to replace that sort of market feedback. That is critical.
Yeah, I can add something there. So there's this book which everyone should take a look at. Sorry, it's maybe not that easy to look at. So sorry, it's not this one. Give me 3 seconds.
Innovator's Dilemma is also a great book.
Yeah, that one is also a really good book, but this is the one that I was looking for. Yeah, so that's the kind of like the Bible of startups. It's called the Lean Startup. And we didn't came up with the concept of minimum viable product. That concept came from the Lean Startup book. And what the book tells you is that indeed figuring out the minimum viable product is extremely hard. And the only way of coming up with that MVP is to do it in cycles and iteratively, right? So as Lou was saying, it's super important that you talk to customers and you have something to show them. Hopefully you'll get it done, on the first try, but more often than not, you will have to iterate, right? So that's why our model is iterative and we work with you long term. It's not uncommon to take like, couple months, 3 months, or even more to really nail down the idea. But also like each iteration that you do will get you closer to the final product, right? And market product fit. But yeah, so definitely take a look at the Lean Startup if it doesn't ring any bells.
Awesome.
All right, Lou.
Well, thank you, Javier. And we're getting close to the hour, so apologies if we didn't get to your question. I think we got pretty much everything. Thank you all for joining our webinar. We will be emailing out to everyone who registered a link to the webinar, some additional information. For next steps, if you'd like to talk to us, feel free to reach out. You can use this link here to book a strategy session with Javier to talk about your idea and how we might be able to help you. Also, you can book on our website. And if you're not quite ready to talk, on our website, you can also sign up for our newsletter. We provide a weekly newsletter where we provide updates and guidance from Javier's insights in the market, share customer stories, and also share events like this that we're doing. So thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your time. We hope you found it valuable.